Good morning, everybody, and here we are for another reading, and I think it's a bit dark, even though I changed the settings so that everything should be a little bit lighter. There we go, that's a little bit better. So, how is everybody this morning? This is Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I still only have the Chinese version. So, we're going to do some more reading, but we're going to do some reading from The Art of Thinking Clearly, which is a really interesting book because some things I agree with, some I don't, which is really, really interesting. And today we have another short chapter, and today is chapter 6, and we're doing Don't Accept Free Drinks, and it's called Reciprocity. And nice to meet you too, Blake. It is good to see you. So for everybody who is following on YouTube or Facebook, I live stream to Big O Live as well. And some people are going to be saying hello. And yeah, I look forward to all of your comments, and let's discuss this book and what you think about it, because that is the really fun part about this exercise. So it's good to have you here. Let's do some reading. Not so long ago, yeah, that's a great start to it. Not so long ago, you may have come across disciplines of the Hare Krishna sect floating around in saffron-colored robes as you hurried to catch a flight or a train to your destination. A member of the sect presented you with a small flower and a smile. If you're like most people, you took the flower, if only not to be rude. If you tried to refuse, you would have heard a gentle, "Take it, this is our gift to you." If you wanted to dispose of the flower in the next trash can, you found that there were already a few there. But that was not the end. Just as your bad conscience started to tug at you, another disciple of Krishna approached you, this time asking for a donation. In many cases, this plea was successful and so persuasive that many airports banned the sect from their premises. I still remember reading about this story when I first read and it says it here actually. No, it doesn't actually say the book that it was that I read it in first of all. I think it's called The Science of Persuasion, yes, or The Psychology of Persuasion, one of those, by Robert Cialdini. It's a really great book, and it is absolutely the way it works. So it's very important to make sure that you understand these kinds of principles. So I would highly recommend, and we could also do some reading from it, The Psychology of Influence by Robert Cialdini. But when we receive something, we feel very, very compelled to give something back to somebody. And this is, so yesterday I was also reading something very interesting. It's called The Wisdom of Ourselves by Bruce Lipton. And it talked about the fact that Darwin was actually incorrect when it came to survival of the fittest, because really it's survival of the communities, it's survival of the group, it's how we work together that creates survival. So our body is made up of trillions and trillions of cells. So we're not really humans, we're going really deep today, aren't we? We are actually trillions of cells. We are like a collective of cells that turn into a human. We're like, I don't know, is it like a transformer or something else? So this is what we are as humans, and it's that collective working together to create us, to allow us to be all of those kinds of things. We are really getting off track, but it's really fascinating how it's the community working together. And so it's that idea that creates this reciprocity, so that when somebody gives us something, we feel compelled to give something back. Psychologist Robert Cialdini, we were just talking about him, his ears should be getting nice and warm, can explain the success of this and other such campaigns. He has studied the phenomenon of reciprocity and has established that people have extreme difficulty being in another person's debt. Most NGOs, non-government organizations, I think that is, and philanthropic organizations use exactly the same techniques. First give, then take. Last week, a conservative organization sent me an envelope full of postcards featuring all sorts of idyllic landscapes. The accompanying letter assured me that the postcards were a gift to be kept, whether or not I decided to donate to their organization. Even though I understood the tactic, it took a little willpower and ruthlessness to throw them in the trash. So what do you do when you receive something from somebody? And thank you for the little heart, Jill. That's amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And everybody else that is joining, nice to see you all. Thank you for being here. So what do you do when you receive a gift? Do you feel compelled to donate? Do you understand the strategy? And I know that a lot of people have never learned this. So this is really fascinating and really interesting. Unfortunately, this kind of gentle blackmail, you could also call it corruption, is widespread. A supplier of screws invites a potential customer to join him at a big sports game. A month later, it's time to order screws. The desire not to be in debt is so strong that the buyer gives in and places an order with his friend, even if he doesn't need screws, perhaps. It's amazing, isn't it? It's also an ancient technique. We find reciprocity in all species whose food supplies are subject to high fluctuations. Suppose you're a hunter-gatherer. One day you are lucky and kill a deer. You can't possibly eat all of it in a day, and refrigerators are still a few centuries away. That's so funny. You decide to share the deer with the group, which ensures that you will benefit from other spoils when your haul is less impressive. So when I am running cash flow nights, I do something similar. We were actually talking about this, which is really, really fascinating, really interesting, that I automatically send people money when they have a baby in the game or when they get downsized in order to be able to help them out. And I know that that will probably get me something in return. And I was talking to somebody else who was telling me that it's probably a good idea to check with them first whether they actually want it. And we might have been talking about this without even realizing it. How fascinating. Okay. The bellies of your buddies serve as your refrigerator because you're putting something into their bellies, and then when they have something, they will share with you. So sharing, really the powerful thing behind this. Reciprocity is a very useful survival strategy, a form of risk management. Without it, humanity and countless species of animals would be long extinct. It is at its core, and my computer is running low on battery, so I have to change it from charging the phone to charging the computer. There we go. Without it, humanity and countless species of animals would be long extinct. It's at the core of cooperation between people who are not related to each other and a necessary ingredient for economic growth and wealth creation. There would be no global economy without it. There would be no economy at all. That's the good side of reciprocity. But there's also an ugly side of reciprocity: retaliation. Revenge breeds counter-revenge, and you soon find yourself in a full-scale war. Jesus preached that we should break this cycle by turning the other cheek, which proves very difficult to do. So compelling is the pull of reciprocity even when the stakes are far less high. Several years ago, a couple invited me and my wife to dinner. We had known this couple casually for quite some time. They were nice, but far from entertaining. We couldn't think of a good excuse to refuse, so we accepted. Things played out exactly as we had imagined. The dinner party was beyond tedious. Nevertheless, we felt obliged to invite them to our home a few months later. The constraint of reciprocity had now presented us with 2 wearisome evenings, and lo and behold, a few weeks later, a follow-up invitation from them arrived. I wonder how many dinner parties have been endured in the name of reciprocity. Yes, even if the participants would have preferred to drop out of the vicious cycle years ago. And this ties straight back in, and I don't know if it actually says it here. No, it doesn't. It actually ties back into another chapter that we read on the sunk cost fallacy, where if something is terrible, you shouldn't continue with it. So a bit rude, though, to walk out of a dinner party that you accepted. But anyway, that is how it works sometimes. And thank you to all the hearts and everything else that everybody's sending in the comments. A bit hard to have a look at the comments while I'm reading them, but it's all good. I accept and I'm grateful for them anyhow. In much the same way, if somebody approaches you in the supermarket, whether to offer you a taste of wine, a chunk of cheese, or a handful of olives, my best advice is to refuse their offer unless you want to end up with a refrigerator full of stuff you don't like. So what are your experiences with reciprocity, and have you ever had something similar happen? Kimberly's asking, what's your Instagram? business_team_6. That is my Instagram. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. And I'm also going to follow you. There we go. So what are your experiences with the reciprocity? And have you ever done something just because somebody's given you something? For example, in the supermarket, I noticed it quite a few times. I actually do my absolute best to avoid the free taste test section. I'll walk all the other aisles and walk behind them to see if I can avoid them. Do you do the same? So this was another Out of Thinking Clearly, really interesting book. Some I agree with more than others, but it's a great way to think about the world and to understand the principles so that you can use them to your advantage, so that you don't get trapped by them. So another really great one. And let's have a look. What is the next chapter for us? That was number 6. Number 7, Beware the Special Case. The Confirmation Bias, Part 1. So we've got a 2-part session coming up in our next reading. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you're looking forward to it. And yes, lots of really interesting ones in that one. So have a great day. I will see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock Sydney time. And thank you for joining. And let's continue the conversation about this amazing book.